ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
Nearly a week after a violent attack on the Capitol, the FBI is monitoring for armed protests leading up to next week's inauguration. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. So far, the Sheriff's Department says there have been no specific threats in the San Diego area. But as our ABC 10 News reporter Adam Rakusin explains, some Democrats are linking the people behind the rioting to the effort to recall Governor Newsom.
Those behind a petition to recall California Governor Gavin Newsom say they've collected more than 1 million signatures, claiming Californians are fed up with the direction of the state.
Welcome, everyone. And I want to
On Tuesday, the head of the California Democratic Party and several big city Democratic leaders responded to the recall effort, at points drawing a line from the riot at the nation's capital last week back to the recall effort, even using the word coup.
The same individuals and groups who were encouraged by California Republican leaders and attacked the People's House are also engaged in a recall effort against Governor Gavin Newsom right here in California.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria and County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher both on the virtual press conference.
Same Trump-inspired conspiracy theorists are now seeking to undermine our democracy in California. They are involved in recall elections against our Governor Gavin Newsom.
Those behind the current recall effort say, how dare they use that language?
Shame on them for using that tactic, and if this is the level they're going to resort to, then we're going to be more and more successful because the average Californian isn't going to put up with their garbage.
Randy Economy says the recall effort is about things like housing, homelessness, and the economy.
Californians are in dire consequences right now, in dire straits.
And let's be clear here, a recall is part of politics. Article 2 of the California Constitution, approved by California voters in 1911, allows people to recall and remove elected officials and justices of the state Supreme Court from office. Back in 2003, voters recalled then Governor Gray Davis and elected Arnold Schwarzenegger. Adam Rakusin, ABC 10 News.
And taking a live look right now in Washington, where the House is working to pass a resolution calling on Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office. Although it is expected to pass, Pence already notified Nancy Pelosi today he has no intention of doing so. The House is likely to pass one article of impeachment tomorrow.
Turning now to the coronavirus, California's Health and Human Services Secretary says there are early signs that our COVID-19 surge may finally be flattening out.
Yesterday, we actually reported 11 fewer individuals in our ICUs across the state for COVID than we did the previous day. Again, 11, not a big change, but important that it doesn't keep going up, which is one of the early signs that we want to see as we hope and trend towards improvement.
And this afternoon, the governor announced the Sacramento region is having its stay-at-home order lifted. The area has a projected 4-week ICU bed capacity above 15%. Here at home, the county announced another 3,500 cases today, bringing our total to 198,000. 41 more San Diegans have lost their lives to COVID, bringing that total to just under 1,900.
Loved ones are grieving of a COVID-19 death of a local grandfather and nursing home resident. As our ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chen found out, he died 2 weeks before he was set to receive the COVID vaccine.
This is a photo of Antonio Goncalves as the pandemic began at the South Bay skilled nursing facility he'd been living at for more than 5 years. He'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's nearly a decade ago. On December 20th, his daughter Vanda got a call from the facility. Her father had tested positive for COVID-19.
My heart just dropped because I already knew what was going to happen.
The 80-year-old Goncalves, who suffered from heart problems, was transferred to a hospital 3 days later. He was placed on a ventilator. This screen grab from a video call as Vanda told him how much she loves him. On December 30th, Goncalves, a father and grandfather, passed away.
Crushed my heart. It was the most horrible news in my whole entire life. My dad is everything to me.
Vonda says her dad emigrated from Portugal some 6 decades ago, working for several decades as a commercial fisherman.
Anyone he would come across, he would put out his hand and say hi.
Becoming a familiar, friendly face in the Point Loma area. So many years later, despite the Alzheimer's diagnosis, Vonda's face is one Goncalves still remembered. We've learned Goncalves and other residents at the skilled nursing facility were scheduled to receive their first dose of the COVID vaccine this week, just 2 weeks after his death.
That's really sad that my dad could not hold on that long to get that COVID-19 shot to help him.
As the number of local COVID deaths continues to climb, Vonda urging others to wear masks and take precautions.
This is real. It happened to me. It happened to my family. And I do not want it to happen to yours.
Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
The county is stepping up enforcement of businesses not complying with COVID restrictions. Today, the Board of Supervisors voted to increase resources to cover inspections and citations for violators. Businesses that don't comply with public health orders will not be eligible for county relief money. The plan also calls for distributing funds to areas where data shows people have been hit the hardest, mostly minority communities.
People in our county are hurting, especially in low-income and communities of color, and we need to ensure that as the county receives future funding for COVID-19 mitigation.
Supervisor Jim Desmond was the only member of the board to vote against the new policy. The U.S. will require all international air travelers entering the country to test negative for COVID. Starting January 26th, air passengers must test negative up to 3 days before their flight to the U.S. departs. They must provide proof of their results to the airline. And this news comes as Japan Airlines announces it will resume non-stop flights between Tokyo and San Diego. The flights, which were suspended last April, will resume in early March. You can stay on top of any new developments with coronavirus by downloading the 10 News app. A free version is available in the App Store.
The man who murdered homeless San Diegans 4 years ago will spend the rest of his life in prison. John Guerrero was sentenced today to 4 consecutive life sentences. He pleaded guilty nearly a year ago to 15 felony charges, including murder, assault, and arson. He's responsible for murdering 3 homeless men and 1 elderly woman back in 2016. Prosecutors say his weapons of choice were hammers and railroad spikes. An East County man has been missing since before Christmas. The Sheriff's Department says that Christopher Parkhurst was last seen December 23rd at a home on Horizon View Road in Potrero. He's diabetic and recently suffered a stroke. Parkhurst is 47, described as 5 feet 5 inches tall, and weighs about 120 pounds. You're asked to contact the Sheriff's Department if you have any information on his whereabouts.
Plans are underway to completely change an iconic stretch of the border wall. Friendship Park is a place that people can go to actually touch loved ones on the other side. But ABC 10 News anchor Lindsay Pena explains why it may soon be gone.
For nearly 50 years now, Friendship Park has been the only physical connection that remains for loved ones separated by the border.
Families have used the park for generations. Families that are separated by immigration status, mothers that haven't seen their children in 10, sometimes 20 years, come from long distances.
Daniel Wattman with the group Friends of Friendship Park says through the fence, people could actually touch each other. And over the years, the site has been the location of all sorts of activities aimed at creating better cross-border relations.
Yoga classes, poetry readings. We built a binational friendship garden of native plants, religious ceremonies. The border church has been there for years.
But within weeks, U.S. Customs and Border Protection is set to begin construction to replace the existing fence with a new 30-foot tall border wall.
It's going to be a scar on the park, and it's antithetical to what the park's all about.
A statement from CBP reads in part, the existing primary fencing no longer meets USBP's operational needs. As with all of CBP's border wall projects, CBP executes a robust outreach effort to solicit public input as part of the environmental planning process. Wattman and others are now planning a virtual protest later this month and asking people to sign a petition. The hope is that plans might be put on hold once President-elect Biden takes office. Otherwise,
So it'll turn into a fortress with some access. That would be the best case scenario. And the worst case scenario is that they would close off the park completely.
Lindsay Pena, ABC 10 News.
If plans continue on schedule, construction on the wall at Friendship Park is expected to be completed late this year.
High surf continues to pound San Diego's coastline, although not quite as dramatically as yesterday. It was a beautiful sunrise this morning when our ABC 10 News crew arrived in Ocean Beach. The waves made for a good morning for surfers, too. Those high tides have not been good for the OB Pier, though. The pier remains closed indefinitely. The city tells us the waves are still too high for them to check out the damage that was caused over the last few days. Angelica Campos will tell us what's to come with that high surf coming up later in weather.